Blog Talk Radio.
Carol the Coach. Sex, love, and relationships. We talk about it here.
Carol the Coach. Compassion with contemporary relevance.
I am a psychotherapist. I can be your personal life coach, and I can help you with your issues. There are no problems too small or too big. You can talk about anything.
Speaker, columnist, radio TV host, and commentator. Carol the Coach brings messages of wellness and empowerment within reach of everyday people every day.
Almost 5 years ago, I lost my soulmate in an accident. He was killed in a plane crash. Life just, for me, has seemed to stop.
There are groups all over the city. I teach one. It is a specific way to start thinking so that you shift how you see the world, which then shifts your energy, and then you feel better and you actually see things differently.
Carol the Coach. Always available, too, at carolthecoach.com.
Now, I got Russell on the line.
I'm 47 years old. I'm a truck driver. I'm married. I have a wife in San Francisco.
Okay.
I haven't been home in 6 months. My thing is, I don't know if I have a sex addiction or what the problem is. Why do I want what I can't have? And as soon as I can have it, I don't want it anymore.
You're right on target when you say, I don't know if I have a sexual addiction. Well, guess what? Yes, you do. And you know what? That's my specialty, Russell, so you're at the right place. Continue.
I meet women online, and I'm in a different part of the country. I travel all 48 states, so I love sex.
I hear self-esteem issues. You never felt good enough, and you didn't feel like you were getting what you should have then, and you're reenacting that now. Do you want to change that about yourself?
You get what you need.
I got an interesting email this week. He says, thank you for taking my email in question. My girlfriend and I listen to you on the radio, and she respects your opinion as I do. So here's the question. I've been separated for 9 months. I'm working on a divorce. Is it okay to date? I believe it is. But she's not comfortable with being around people who know my divorce is not final. Can you help? He kind of answered it when he said if she's not comfortable, it's not a good gig. And Pat, you have some questions about dating?
I am 58 years old, and I've been divorced for years. I was watching the Oprah show the other day, and they were talking about
sexual desire.
How does that factor in if you're after menopause?
Obviously, being postmenopausal, you aren't going to have the same pheromones, but then the men you're probably going to be dating, they're not going to have that need to mate with you, for children. How do you feel about
just dating to date? Well, those are some of the questions that we ask, especially if there's been a history. And by history, what I mean is if you've been betrayed, or if you are somebody who's dating and you have said, oh, I really, really want to find somebody who is healthy, who is interested in me, and then either you're someone who gets exploited, or maybe you're the person who does the exploiting and you didn't mean to do it. Well, we're talking sexual addiction, and sexual addiction is a tough topic to talk about. Here on this show, I interview the experts, people that are actually running workshops. They are part of hospital and residential treatment centers. They've written books, and they talk about what it feels like to be sexually addicted, how they may hate themselves because of sexual addiction. They really share what's true to them, and so I'm always excited to be doing this show because I know it is a show that will help lots of people, and I know that because they email me and they say, hey, I Googled sexual addiction on iTunes, and your show was the only show that came up. So we're excited to have this show for you because it is a way to disseminate information, get experts out there so that you can find out about their books, their workshops, the centers that they work for or with, that they founded or started, and, information is power. If you're somebody who's had a sexual addiction, this show is the show to help you to figure out what you need to do to manage that. And if you're a partner of somebody who has sexual addiction, this show is the way to figure out what can I do to get healthy, take care of myself, and create good boundaries so that I maintain my sense of self no matter who I'm married to, who I'm dating, what I'm doing. You know, there are so many ways to take care of yourself, but when you're engulfed in a pathological situation, you may not know how to get out of it. You may not know how to stay in it and stay healthy. So tonight I'm really excited because we are going to be talking to a woman. Her name is Valerie Arnett, and she actually has an incredible workshop that she has devoted to women and men who are involved with people with sexual addictions. Although her workshop intensive is called No Broken Hearts Workshop Intensive, it's based on the premise that nobody need be left behind because of financial strain. And she has a 3.5-day program that's conducted by highly trained and skilled professionals. So I wanted to talk with her about what does that program involve and why did she get involved in this work and what books would she recommend and how can you sign up for her workshop or what are some other resources available in the United States. And, you know, with Blog Talk Radio, we actually look at what is available in the world because this is not just designated for Indianapolis, Indiana, where I am, and it's not just a show for the United States, it's worldwide. And so we're going to be talking with her. And, of course, anybody who has ever thought that they were in love with somebody with a sex addiction needs to read Mending a Shattered Heart. You know, that is the work by Stephanie Carnes, who is Dr. Patrick Carnes' daughter. It's interesting because when you work with them and you train with them, they don't call each other father and daughter. They call each other Pat and Stephanie. And she has a second revised edition of her book, and she works very closely with Jennifer Schneider, who is a doctor and a PhD, who specializes in addiction medicine and pain management. And so together they have worked on this book, Mending a Shattered Heart. And Jennifer Schneider has been a researcher, speaker, and author in the field of sexual addiction for over 20 years. And she has an excellent book called Back from Betrayal, Recovering from His Affairs. So tonight we are designating this night for the partner of an addict. However, if you're an addict, I encourage you to stay tuned because let's face it, you think you know how your partner feels, but let's talk about it. Let's find out if indeed you do. You know, one of the things that can help break the cycle of sexual addiction is when you begin to really empathize with your partner. It becomes a cornerstone for staying in recovery and staying sober from sexual addiction. So it matters not whether you're an addict or whether you're a partner. The show is going to be an excellent, excellent show. You know, Valerie really believes that that it's her mission to dispel the myths and lies that women oftentimes believe about themselves, especially after a disclosure or discovery of their husband, fiancé, boyfriend, former spouse's sexual addiction has occurred. And I got to tell you, I just had a man tonight. He went to the Meadows. He's really working hard on his program. And he is actually participating in another one of my colleagues' intensives on discovery and disclosure, Milton Magnus. And they have that set up for October. And unfortunately, his wife today found his fourth step, which goes into all sorts of details that she was unaware of. So here she is. She's dealing with a situation where she thought she knew the gist of her husband's indiscretions and now has found out a lot of information that she didn't know. And she's having to deal with that by herself. And, of course, she is absolutely devastated. Now, the good news is they have a 2-hour appointment with me tomorrow, and he actually had that appointment, so he said, can I bring my wife? Because I know she's devastated. This is a man who's in recovery, and he knows that this is a process that he and his wife need to go through. But in the meantime, here's his wife who's found this information, and it couldn't be any more heart-wrenching to find out information that really keeps you separated from your spouse. And, today we're talking about women, but truly this can happen to men too. I have a lot of men on my caseload that are dealing with their wife's sexual addiction. So oftentimes people come to us and they're confused and they're scared and they're hurt and they're devastated. And, as Valerie says, they can see the grass is green, but they're being told it's purple, or maybe they've been told it's purple for years and years and they believed it. And then, as they find out what's going on and they feel so alone, they feel so betrayed, they feel so left behind. And so for that reason, we felt like tonight's show would help people to decide what can they do. How can a spouse get healthy? What is all this self-care thing about? I'm always encouraging people to take better care of themselves and not get wrapped up in what the addict is doing. But really, when they find out that their husband or wife has betrayed them, their first course of action is to decide what do they need to keep themselves safe, and then what do they need to do to take care of themselves. And Valerie's going to be talking more about that, as well as her intensive workshop, which is a 3.5-day workshop to help people, help spouses to get clear on what they need to do for themselves. And I know it's devastating. And, in the field of addictions, we have often been told that sometimes people have to get help, intensive help, at least 3 different times before they really get recovery and figure out what they need to do to stay in recovery. Now, that doesn't mean everybody needs that, but that's one of the stats that we know about drug addiction, alcohol addiction, and sex addiction. So I'm here to tell you it is not unusual for people to slip and relapse when they are in recovery, and that doesn't mean you give up on them, but it does mean that you have to pay special attention to taking care of yourself. Now, if you have a question tonight, I want you to write down this number. The number is 646-595-3284. And you can ask Valerie any questions you'd like, or myself. And again, what I know to be true is that this show can be heard live on Monday nights at 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And most people happen to listen to the show because it's downloaded onto their computer by subscribing free to iTunes. And that podcast is www.blogtalkradio.com/Sex Help with Carol the Coach. I'm Carol the Coach. I've made it my mission to assist people with sexual addiction. And, I've said it before, we are all pioneers in this field, although sexual addiction has been around forever. Access, anonymity, and affordability has made it increasingly more prevalent, and so I'm here to help. And for anybody in the Indianapolis area, I'm going to be starting a men's group on Monday nights, starting next week, next Monday, and you can call me at area code 317-218-3479 or email me at carolthecoach@AOL.com. And we'll be happy to do an assessment and decide, are you ready for the group? Because it is a sexual addictions men's therapeutic group, and it is to help you stay in recovery and make healthy choices, because I know that can be very, very difficult when you are tempted to go back to your old ways, tempted to partake in unhealthy sexual behaviors. And in the 12-step realm, we call call that middle or inner circle behaviors. You know, there's a circle that the SAA books talks about, and that's Sexual Addicts Anonymous. And the outside circle is healthy sexual behaviors. The middle circle is those behaviors that are slippery slopes. You know, are you looking at porn? Are you looking at magazines? Are you walking into video stores? Are you chatting with women on the Internet? Are you staring at women and objectifying them? You know, those may be middle circle behaviors. And then, of course, the inner circle behaviors may be that you are participating in affairs. You're participating in infidelity. You are exposing yourself, or you're participating in voyeurism. I mean, there are 20 types of sexual addictive behaviors, and if you've listened to other podcasts, you know what they are. But if you're participating in those kind of behaviors, you're not going to stay clean. And this show is about providing you the tools and resources so that you always stay clean. So that is why I am so happy to be presenting you with some of the experts in the field of sexual addiction, whether it be you that has sexual addiction or whether it be your spouse or partner. So I'm so glad and eager to talk to Valerie Arnett. And she's created this intensive workshop for partners who are experiencing sexual abuse. And so, Valerie, welcome to the show.
Hi, Carol. Thank you for having me on, and good evening.
Good evening. And, wow, you've been doing these kind of workshops for how long?
These particular workshops that I've created, I've been doing for almost 10 years. However, I was doing some contract work for another organization that had a similar type of workshop, and that was back in the mid-'90s. So I've been doing workshops for a very, very long time. But I developed my own program close to 10 years now.
Well, and that's what so many professionals in the field do. They get a taste of doing something, and then they kind of customize it, make it their own, and provide it maybe the way that they would really like to do that. So, you know, obviously you have a handle on how devastating this can be for anybody who has experienced a husband, fiance, boyfriend, spouse, where there's sexual addiction and how that leaves them reeling with confusion and fear and hurt. You know, what made you decide that these workshops would be helpful? And tell me a little bit about that.
That is a great question, Carol. You know, when I first thought about doing a workshop, I wasn't even really sure at that time that the Midwest was ready for anything like this, and there hadn't been anything at all in the Midwest. But what really prompted me to consider it seriously, putting a program together, were the women that were coming into my office. I found that through colleagues, through local churches, sometimes the clergy, sometimes medical doctors, they were all referring women who seemed to have kind of a common theme, if you will, running through the distress in their lives, while these professionals didn't necessarily know what was really going on underneath. Once I'd have them in my office for several sessions, it became real apparent. They needed a place to be heard. They needed to be believed. But mostly they needed to feel safe, Carol, that when they told their story, the real reason that they were coming in for counseling, that the person sitting across from them was going to help to shore them up with the strength that they so needed. So after several years of being available for counseling one-on-one, some of the women had heard about the workshop that I'd been involved in so very many years ago, And they asked me why I didn't do one myself, because there wasn't anything here at all locally.
And where are you located, Valerie?
I am located in Peoria, Illinois. So
Okay.
we're right in the heart of the state of Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time that women were asking me, these women were coming from not just central Illinois. Some of them were coming for counseling from the St. Louis area. They were coming from way northern Illinois. They were coming from Iowa. And they were all hungry for something to help them navigate all of the landmines that they were experiencing in their marriages, or if they're engaged to be married, or they were currently separated, or some of them were even divorced. So, you know, when you keep hearing the same question over and over again, why don't you do something? Why don't you do something? Why don't you put something together? Because we know that we're not alone, but we don't know where else to go. And there truly wasn't anything back then, Carol. I said, you know, I'm going to need to think about this, and I'm going to need to pray about this, because this is really big. This is a huge request. So I presented the idea to the agency where I'm working. I work at the Antioch group here in Peoria.
Uh-huh.
And my colleagues said to me, well, Val, you've done psychoeducational groups here. You were affiliated in the past with this other organization from another state. Why not? So I truly did think about it, prayed about it, and I stepped out on faith, and I decided that I would put together a 3.5-day, I call it a workshop intensive. I don't call it treatment because I don't bill insurance. So for an entire summer, on weekends, every single weekend for an entire summer, I set up my computer. My husband set up tables for me, and I started doing my research, and I started writing every weekend. I wrote and I wrote and I wrote. And a friend of mine who now helps me with the workshops, she's a volunteer, and she lives near Indiana, actually. She does. She lives in Clifton, Illinois. She said, Val, I'll do the PowerPoint. You just send me what you're writing. So that's what I did for an entire summer until I had it all tweaked and put together the way I thought it ought to be. And then we sat down together, my friend and I, and we looked at what the format should be, not just the content, but what should the format be, because I wanted my program to be very unique. So that was kind of the beginning. So I wrote this 3.5-day program, started doing some advertising, rather low-key because of the sensitive topic, the sensitive nature, and we've never looked back. We've continued.
Oh, that's fantastic. So when
writing.
Women, is it only women or can men come too?
You know, I love that question, Carol. I've never had a man ask. I have never had a husband whose wife may be struggling come forward. I'm not totally surprised about that, because when I think about alcoholism and other forms of using addictions, most generally, if a wife or a girlfriend's going to be having a problem with addictions, whether it's alcohol or drugs or prescription drugs, husbands, I think, sometimes struggle with reaching out for help. I think they would like to believe that they can provide whatever help that they need. So it's real tough sometimes. You're a therapist, and so I'm sure that you can probably relate to this. It isn't always the easiest thing to get the husbands in. But I don't think that that's going to stay that way. I think something's going to have to be done, and eventually I think some men are going to reach out and say, what about us? Our wives are struggling also. But I just haven't had that request yet.
Okay, so then your intensives so far have primarily obviously been for women, and when they come to the intensive obviously they're confused and they're hurt, they're feeling betrayal, and more than likely are feeling stuck. and that's why this mode of treatment, or you said you didn't call it treatment, but this intensive can help to unstick them from that pain.
I believe so. And anecdotally, comments that I have from women who've been in the workshop intensive, I have everybody fill out an evaluation. So all of the anecdotal comments do, in fact, continue to affirm that, Carol. They continue to say things like, I didn't know what to expect, and when I went, this program exceeded my expectations. Several women said it gave me a jump start in my therapy process with my own individual therapist. So I think it does help them to get unstuck. My program consists of what I call modules. These are essentially 8 lectures. So in addition to sitting and listening to me lecture, and they don't sit all day long, I've incorporated a lot of different experiential exercises. Some of them we do outside, some of them we do indoors, but they are all meant to build one upon the other. Each module builds one upon the other, so that by the time we're done on Sunday at 5 o'clock, these women have a totally new perspective, understanding, and sense of being in community with others. They're no longer alone. And for many of them, even coming in to talk to me, it's the first time that they have ever spoken about what they have been living with for maybe 15, 20 years. So they do become unstuck, unglued. And that's the point of it. That really is the point. No woman needs to be out there feeling alone with nobody to talk to because of the shame, the humiliation. That isn't correct, because it's not theirs to have.
Well, and I know so many of the women that I work with, they wonder, they have 2 issues. One is they wonder what they did to contribute to the problem, and they feel responsible on some level. And so much of our work is to let them know, although we all contribute to our own issues, they are not responsible for their husband's choices. And then the second issue they have is, how can I ever trust him again? They feel so betrayed that they don't know that they can muster the true trust to reinvest in their partner. So I'm hoping that at least one of your modules covers both of those issues.
Absolutely. In fact, the first module is entitled Trust. And trust isn't something that, for any of us, in any of life's circumstances, trust should not be offered blindly to anyone, because that's not safe. It's dangerous. We teach our children, we teach our grandchildren to never blindly trust anyone. So, that is a fair thing for any woman in the workshop to come in with, saying, I don't trust him, I don't know that I can ever trust him again. I said, that's okay to think that way for now. It's okay to feel that way for now. However, none of us can live the rest of our lives in a healthy fashion without trusting someone. And I don't say to women, you are going to be expected to trust your husband by the time you're done with this intensive. That would not be ethical, it would not be true, and it would certainly be foolish. So we do talk a lot about trust. For some women, they don't realize that developing trust is a process. It's not just a one-time statement, okay, honey, I forgive you, and now let's get on with our marriage, and I trust you from this day forward. So trust can take a very, very, very long time. And as you also know, it is the responsibility of the betrayer to reestablish trust in that relationship. So when women come in and they say, I don't trust him, I don't think I can ever trust him, I say, that's okay. That's where you need to be. That's a wise place to be for the moment.
Yeah, because oftentimes, obviously, it makes them doubt the entire relationship. It's like they had an illusion of what they thought was really happening in their lives, and then they find out it's very different. And they not only don't trust their spouse, but they don't trust their own experience that they can read what's going on in their life. So it on so many different layers, it really affects trust.
Yes, and Carol, I'm sure you've heard this before. I've had women in here who've said, I feel so stupid. I feel so dumb. I was blindsided. How could I have not seen the signs? Or I thought there was something going on. He convinced me that it wasn't going on, and yet I continue to believe him. So you're absolutely right. Not only do they not trust him because of the evidence that they've seen, but they then no longer trust themselves. So I need to work with them on that, and the one module in particular does very well address why they need to begin to trust themselves. I use this cliche for women. Have you felt about yourself that you were some kind of a crazy woman believing that the grass was purple when you knew all along that it was green? And they'll chuckle, and yet they'll say, you're so right. You're so right. I was convinced that the grass was purple, but as I looked at it, it was green, but I couldn't prove that it was green. So trust is a huge thing. Well, and that is by
very nature of addiction. There's lies and deceit and cunning con artist type maneuvers, and so, you can't be an addict without lying to your spouse, and it's very difficult for them to know when is a spouse really in recovery, when are they really trying, when have they had slips, when have they had relapses. And so I imagine by the time women get to you, their husband has not just betrayed them, they betrayed them over and over and over again.
For many of my clients, that is true. I have had several women who were engaged to be married, so their relationship was still fairly fresh in terms of either discovery or disclosure. So they haven't had the multiple betrayals, at least not to their knowledge. But other women, you're absolutely right. The betrayal has gone on for years and years and years, so they are truly the walking wounded with so many issues around trust. And then they do say to themselves, in answer to your second comment, did I cause this? He tells me that I was responsible for this, for my choices, that if only I had blonde hair, if I had blue eyes, if I was a size 2 or if I was a size 20, if only we had sex every single day. It's the if onlys that they hear repeatedly that can result in their believing that it was their fault. So I remind women of the 3 C's of Al-Anon, and it's the same 3 C's that are used in any Anon, if you will, support group. You didn't cause it, you cannot control it, and you cannot cure it, meaning him. So I want them to hold on to that, whether they're only able to hear the words during the intensive workshop or not. Write it down, the 3 C's. You didn't cause it. You cannot control his actions or his behavior. And you cannot cure it.
Well,
now, in addition to that, of course, within every marriage, there are going to be challenges. Any marriage, whether there's addiction or not, because we're human beings, and there's going to be conflict, and there's going to be problems. But we're not going to deal with those right out of the chute. And oftentimes that's what wives are being requested, or their fiancé or their loved one. Let's just work on the relationship. I promise you I'm not doing this anymore, so let's just work on the relationship. And while the relationship does need to be addressed, and they will get addressed, those issues will get addressed, until he is in treatment or counseling or in recovery for a substantial amount of time, and until she is in her own recovery, to look at all of her issues that probably haven't even come to the surface, we do not do joint marriage counseling because it's going to come back to bite you. I tell them it's like trying to put a Band-Aid on something that needs deep surgery. You can put a Band-Aid on it if you want to. It's a temporary fix, but then all of the poison and the pus and everything that's deep down underneath is going to surface, it's going to push that Band-Aid off, and you're going to be back at square one. Unfortunately, Carol, as you probably also know, sometimes that's what they walk away with after they've seen us a few times. They want to believe that everything is okay, only to come back maybe many, many months later to say, okay, I'm ready to have surgery done here. I know that has happened, at least in my practice.
And so, Valerie, what would you say in terms of, this is a show that it's psychoeducational, and it helps men and women alike, addicts and their partners. So if we have an addict who's listening, who knows that his wife, his spouse, his girlfriend, whatever, would probably benefit from this, what would you tell the addict to do to get his or her girlfriend the help that she needs?
Well, first of all, I would ask if he's interested in his loved one getting help.
Mm-hmm.
And I would want to really evaluate and assess what the motives are. If the motives are just get her fixed, because then we're going to stop talking about this, that's not a good reason for her to get the help that she needs. If he were to say, I love her, I want our relationship to work, I am willing to do absolutely anything, and I will demonstrate to you and to my loved one how serious I am about working on myself, then I would say to him, there are a couple of things that your loved one needs to hear from you. It doesn't mean she's going to believe it, but she needs to hear. So some of those things would be, because I love you and because I'm willing to do what I absolutely need to do, I want to encourage you to get the help that you need, which may in many ways be different than the help that I'm going to be getting. But I want you to feel whole again so that we can come back together in a way where we can talk about this, where we can trust each other again. So I would want him to encourage her, not browbeat her or threaten her. Well, if you don't go, then our marriage is over. None of that. Encouragement, love, support, to stand by her side, to not do the work that she needs to do because we can't do work for each other.
Well, and I know that you say that you really believe this is a program where no woman should be left behind. And so, obviously, residential treatment programs and hospitalizations can cost anywhere from $7,000 to $67,000 for a month's worth of treatment or 6 weeks' worth of treatment. And your workshop is a 3.5-day intensive. Can you share, I don't know that you want to share the cost, but will it require that somebody mortgage their home to get to your workshop?
Absolutely not. And that, too, is a good question. And I'll give you some generalizations here. Yes, my program is 3.5 days, which means these are very long days. So
How long? What's
we have breakfast at 7 o'clock in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
I start lecturing at 8 o'clock, and we don't wrap up until generally 10 o'clock at night.
Okay, and do they stay there, or do they then go to a hotel?
No, ma'am. They stay there. They do not go to a hotel, and this is one of the things that makes my program very unique. We go to a campground that is not far from Peoria, about an hour, hour and a half north of Peoria. It is a beautiful, beautiful campground. I've been at this location for several years now, and I'm now calling it home. We stay on site. I stay on site the entire time. One of my colleagues who's shadowing me now, she's also a CSAT, she stays with. And then my friend who lives near Indiana, she's my IT person, my music person. She stays on site. So we stay right there with the women every minute. So they get close to 40 hours of my professional time. So if a woman just calculates that out, how many 45 to 50-minute sessions would that cost her if she were seeing a therapist individually? So close to 40 hours, not quite 40. 3 days lodging, so Thursday, Friday, Saturday, all of their meals, all of their snacks, a professional binder that I have developed for them, and then a lot of extra little special surprises. And I will tell you, it's under $1,000.
Oh, my goodness. That's very, very affordable to begin to heal those wounds and to learn the tools that they can take to their therapist who can follow through with them. That's amazing. How big are these workshops?
Well, they do tend to be rather small and intimate. The last several, I think we've had upwards of 14 to 15 women who sign up, who are ready to go, and then at the last minute, many of them, for a variety of reasons, they tend to be very legitimate. Children are sick, or at the last minute, they are sick. They can't get off work at the last minute. So we've had right around 8 or 9 women, which we find to be a really nice size. But I can certainly handle 20 women. That is not a problem for me at all. I enjoy doing this, and I have handled at least 20 participants in the past. So speaking of the cost, I do have a scholarship fund available so that even if a woman wants to come and perhaps she's separated or divorced, and her funds are strictly going to raising her family, putting food on the table. My philosophy is that no woman should be left behind, and I have made it affordable for every single woman. I have given full scholarships. I have given partial scholarships. Money has never been a reason for a woman not to come to my workshop intensive, Carol.
So this is a workshop intensive with a heart. If need be, you donate your time if you're giving scholarships and funding to these women. And I'm sure there may even be some women that have given more than $1,000. I mean, it sounds like your work is so valuable in terms of healing. And did you hear me talking earlier about the need for self-care, that oftentimes women get so wrapped up in the pain, the drama, the trauma of what their husbands and spouses have done, they forget to take care of themselves.
Oh, Carol, I do an entire lecture on that very thing. In fact, it's the last one, and it's called Going Home. What do I do now? What do I begin to do when I get home? And absolutely, I address all of those elements of each of our lives that you and I take for granted because we simply are able to, or perhaps we haven't had the same kinds of stumbling blocks or challenges that have kept our eyes off of our own health. So many women haven't been to see a dentist, an eye doctor, her family doctor. She stopped exercising, stopped eating correctly because her focus is on what can I do to keep him from doing this behavior again, and how do I take care of the kids, especially if the kids are teenagers or adolescents and they know. So one entire lecture is absolutely to focus on that very thing. Because if they're not healthy, I remind them, those who have children especially, if you're not healthy, if you are not the best mommy that you can possibly be, you're just not going to be able to get through life. So you need to be healthy first. Then you can be the best mommy. When you're healthy in all ways, that means body, mind, soul, spirit, and intellect.
Oh, absolutely. And Valerie, how can women get a hold of you to find out more about the intensive or to actually sign up and register for the next workshop?
Carol, there are a number of ways. One way is to simply call me right here at the Antioch group. And the number here is area code 309-692-6622. And when they call... Would you
repeat that one more time?
Okay. Area code 309 692 6622.
Okay. So that's area code 309.
We have several girls who answer the phones. The best way is to simply say, I would like to leave a confidential voice message for Val. They will patch that person through right to my phone in my office. I will pick it up and I will speak directly to the woman so that I can answer all of their other questions. So that's one way. Another way is to reach me via email here at the Antioch group. And my email address here at Antioch is V as in Victor, A-R, N as in Nancy, E, T as in Tango, T as in Tango, at Antioch Group, that's all one word, .com.
Okay, and Antioch is spelled A-N-T-I-O-C-H?
Correct.
And you said group.
V. Arnett at AntiochGroup.com.
Well, that's good to know because anybody who needs this information that didn't get it perhaps tonight can always email me at carolthecoach@AOL.com. I've got this information, and I will send you to her website, too. Because truly, they may not be ready or available for your next workshop, but it's something that you run periodically. So give us the dates of the next time you're going to be doing this intensive workshop.
Okay. The next one is slated for September. That's this September, September 27th through the 30th. September 27th through the 30th.
And again, it's $1,000 or less for this 3.5-day experience, this intensive workshop. That includes their food, their lodging, and all materials.
And all materials, that is correct. And Carol, if they wanted to see a little bit about this workshop, they could also get out onto www.antiochgroup.com. That's our website, our general website, and just follow the links. Look up Help for Wives of Sex Addicts and click on that, and it'll take you to another link. And they can read a bit more about my workshop, which is titled Healing for Broken Hearts.
Well, that says it all. There's no doubt that every man and woman that I've dealt with, I oftentimes work with gay partners. I work with women who have sexual addictions, and eventually they bring in their husbands. And it matters not what color, what age, what race, nothing.
Absolutely.
They all have broken hearts.
Absolutely. The oldest person I have had in my workshop was 72. The youngest was in her mid-20s. And I've also had mother and adult daughter. I've had that on a couple of occasions where mom discovered after like 30 years of marriage that her husband has a sexual addiction, and the adult daughter struggling with that knowledge, that information about her own father, trying to find help. So I have had mothers and daughters, or a mother and her adult daughter who is married, and they both need a workshop. So that's not unusual.
No, I would think that would be actually an incredible opportunity for families to kind of work together and support each other in their own recovery. Now, let me ask you something. One of the things that I know about doing groups, and I have not worked specifically with this population in groups, but I've run over 2,000 groups, women's groups, and I know that the real work occurs before and after the group. So what happens to these women after this intensive workshop?
Another good question, Carol. I don't leave these women dangling. That's another unique feature of my program. One of the wonderful things that happens at a 3.5-day program is that these women begin to form new friendships. They feel safe with each other. They begin to call each other sisters in pain, if you will, or sisters in recovery, or going from victim to victorious. So before they leave, they exchange whatever information they feel comfortable with. And I've never had a workshop where a woman did not feel comfortable in sharing her phone number, email address, if she has it, and a way to contact each other. So they have that information before they leave the workshop intensive. Another thing is, for women who are already seeing a therapist, they will have special forms to fill out in their application process, and I make sure that I connect with their therapist to share with them the things that I think are going to be helpful, so that they are not just left dangling out there after spending 3.5 days. I give them all kinds of recommendations for books to read. I go with boxes of books. I love to read, and I have a lot of books that are wonderful resources for them, such as Claudia Black, our friend Claudia Black's latest book called Deceived, Barb Steffen's book, Deb Lazer's book. I also want them to read Mark Lazer's book so that they get a really good picture and understanding of what their husbands may be going through. Steffi Carnes' Mending the Shattered Heart. So I bring these books with me so that they can see them, they can look at them, and then when they go home, they can purchase them from whatever bookseller that they deal with. Another thing that I provide them is a list of resources in terms of support groups, either S-Anon or COSA or Al-Anon, because oftentimes men with a sexual addiction have a co-occurring addiction, such as alcoholism or drug addiction or gambling. So I want to give them those resources. So really and truly, these women leave the 3.5-day program armed. They have a toolbox. It isn't just sitting in class and listening to lectures. They have a toolbox of things that they can use in real time. And
that is so wonderful, Valerie, because I'm telling you, that's what women need. They need to go back and reread information that they've gotten and certainly study and meditate on it. So I'm so thankful that you send them home with such resources. And you've been doing therapy for 32 years.
That's
How
right.
long have you been in this field? Yeah. How long have you been in the field of working with women who have someone they love with sexual addiction?
Since 1996.
Okay.
Since
wow.
1996.
So over 15 years.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Very long time. When I started working here at the Antioch Group, I had a private practice on the side, and then I was working here part-time. And that's when the women really started coming to me, and that was before I got my CSAT. I didn't even know about CSAT back then. So I'd been working with these women. I developed a couple of group therapies. They were psychoeducational group therapies here at Antioch. We met once a week for about an hour and a half for several months. So that was just kind of an introduction for many women in their understanding and their education about sex addiction. That was strictly group therapy here. And then, of course, things evolved, as they do for we therapists with our careers oftentimes. And then I developed the workshop intensive. So I've been working with women for a very long time in this area.
Well, I really admire the fact that you've devoted such a portion of your professional life to this situation. And Valerie mentioned CSAT. That means that she's a certified sexual addictions therapist. She's been trained by ITAP, which is the national organization for sexual addiction recovery. And then she mentioned two other words that not everybody would necessarily know. She talked about discovery and disclosure. And discovery is obviously when you, as women, have discovered that your husband, your spouse, your partner has a problem. Disclosure is when they actually share some of their indiscretions. Sometimes it's not all of it, even though they'd like you to believe that, but through a process they can disclose more and more information. And obviously, if that's done with professionals that aren't trained, or I was talking earlier about a woman that thought she pretty much knew it all and then found her husband's 4-step, read it, and realized that even though he had been in a treatment center for 7 weeks, there was way more information that she had even known, and she felt double betrayed even though he's in recovery now. It's like a shock to her system. And so you deal with women across the continuum. They may have just found out. This may be the 4th or 5th time they found out. You know, they may be ultimately betrayed over and over and over again. Their husbands, spouses may be dead, and they may be a widow. You deal with every type of woman who's experienced this kind of pain.
That's right, Carol. And the betrayal that happens over and over again, I do try throughout the workshop intensive, I do try to prepare them. I talk about it in terms of an iceberg. I use that as an analogy, if you will. What you know is what you know, what you know. It may be the tip of the iceberg. It may not be. It may be the full iceberg.
Mm-hmm.
But I need to prepare you just in case it is just the tip of the iceberg. Because here's the thing. For women whose husbands are in treatment, are getting individual counseling, they have a sponsor, they're going to a support group, and if they should happen to stumble upon information like what you just mentioned, is that going to be the straw that breaks the camel's back for her and she says, this is the last time, or you lied to me even when I thought you were being honest with me? Or can we take that experience somehow, you and I, counselor and client, or with your own counselor, and with your husband and with his therapist, can we take that and use that in a way that can promote growth, better understanding, to help you both to move forward? Now, in some cases, women will say, no, that's it, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. And, of course, as a therapist, I have to respect that and then help her work through that for whatever decision she's going to need to make. Mm-hmm. But for those who may think, you know, with recovery comes a lapse. Sometimes there's a relapse. That's recovery across the board. I don't care what the addiction is.
Amen.
Yes, so I have to teach women about that. I mean, I can't not teach women about that. That is part of recovery.
And you bring up such a good point, and that is why no matter where you're at in terms of what you need, Valerie's program can help you at any point. So we're at the end of our show, but I just want to remind anybody who's listening, they can call you at 309-692-6622, or they can email you at varnett, ARNETT, at Antioch, ANTIOCH group.com. Valerie, thank you so much for your helpful information. I'm going to start sending you referrals.
Thank you so much, Carol. I really appreciate it, and it's been fun, and perhaps we'll see each other at the symposium in Phoenix next year. I don't know if you go to those or not. I try to go every year.
I do too, and you never know. I may volunteer to be to help you with one of your intensives. So thank you again.
Thank you so much, Carol, and good night.
Hey, have a great night.
All
right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. You got some valuable information, and as I say at the end of every show, fearlessly have the courage to be yourself. Get the help you need, and stay tuned for more information. This is Carol the Coach, and this is Sex Help, and we are so glad you're here with us. Have a great week.